Hey everyone, this is Siddharth, and I want to welcome you to the next episode of the Sidcast. And today I want to speak about acting despite fear. So, something I've noticed obviously when it comes to implementing something that's related to your success as a person, or if you're looking to implement a project, or you want to achieve a certain goal, or you have a certain desire to achieve something in your life, one of the biggest obstacles, of course, is having fear. And for me, this is a big thing because, fear is something that can really stop us in our tracks, especially if we're looking to achieve something that's really a major milestone in our lives. And fear is obviously something that can obviously, sort of make us stumble on certain things where, if we don't take certain steps, then we don't actually know what is the potential of actually taking a certain action, despite that fear. So one of the things, growing up and obviously, having come from an environment where, fear can be something that can be implemented almost every day. You sort of start seeing what it is that you may have missed out on, or like if you didn't take a certain action, you kind of see what would have happened if you had taken that specific action, even though you had that fear of taking that action. And I'm speaking from a personal perspective because I know that, if I took action in certain situations where I had the fear, I would have probably been at a different place. Now, hindsight, of course, is something that's always going to reveal something like that. And you can't always play on the fact that, if you had taken a specific step or a specific action, you would have achieved something despite that fear. So why is it that fear obviously stops us from doing certain things? Because what happens is in our mind, we actually start creating a sort of a scenario where we start picturing what would happen if, we acted, or if we took a step where that fear was sort of playing on that step, that if we do this, then we might land up in a situation that might hurt us. Now, maybe not physically, but maybe emotionally. And what happens is obviously because our brains are so powerful, we actually start playing out that situation if, with that fear. So obviously we need to look at a process where, we don't let that fear actually, prevent us from taking that specific step that we need to take in terms of, whether it's achieving a certain goal or whether it's just, trying to achieve a certain, a milestone in a project. And I can tell you now, the reason why also, fear is such a big thing is because we create that fear as a person where we create a perception. And this is something I believe very strongly in, where I feel that, when you start creating a perception, it can really start making you feel like it's reality. So, for instance, let's just give an example where, let's say there's a major, online-based investment that you want to make or I want to make. And we've seen enough proof that, there are results that can be achieved from investing in that. But of course, because of our previous situations where we created a perception where we felt that, if we had taken an action in that situation, we would have hurt ourselves. That obviously plays on our mind, and obviously it affects our psychology. And obviously we don't want to act on that because we're worried that we'll get into that specific situation. Now, if that was obviously playing about, it's because you've created that perception that you're not going to actually get that kind of result that you've seen yourself anyways as a proof of concept, but you still want to obviously take, you don't want to take the risk. So in that instance, we have to find a way to obviously change our perception. And if I was to speak from a personal experience, I know that the only way I've grown as a person is I've acted despite the fear. So I've taken action steps knowing that, I could possibly get hurt. But at the same time, for me, the way I view it is I view it as a sort of discovery process where I want to sort of find out that if I take those action steps, what happens when obviously I take those steps and what's going to be revealed on the other side. Now, obviously, there are situations where I haven't sort of achieved what it was I was looking to achieve, but what I did achieve from that perspective is I sort of understood where I was as a person and what it was that I needed to grow on as a person. So even though I had that fear, that what it actually did for me was that going forward, every time I took some kind of step or some kind of action, despite having a certain fear, that fear would no longer play a role in future decisions. So that's a very important point, because for me, at the end of the day, if you start eliminating those fears where you're taking those actions, that's going to actually help you, in terms of growing as a person. And obviously, from the perspective of like whether it's making investment decisions or whether it's, making decisions that relate to your progress in your career, those things obviously matter, because then when you start taking those actions, you'll find as time goes on, when it comes to a certain decision, then you can obviously make a decision much quicker, even though there's this fear that's sitting there. So at the end of the day, what we need to do is obviously look at a way to change our perception on situations. And it's not an easy process, no doubt, but you work on it. It's a work in progress. So if you start changing your perception and you start sort of changing the scenario of what you feel a situation is perceived to be, then perhaps what you'll find is that eventually that fear will actually start disseminating, and you will be able to take the actions that you want to take. I can also tell you that your greatest successes actually come when you actually start acting despite your fears. So that's something, if there's anything else you don't take from this, but take that point that, your greatest successes come from your greatest fears. And I believe that because I've seen situations where people had a massive fear in a specific situation that, they just felt, they were kind of almost paralyzed. They couldn't take action. And having done that afterwards, their reaction was such that they just said, what was stopping me? And reality was, it was just their perception or their fear that was stopping them. And if I was to take, the legend Muhammad Ali, who just, recently passed away, I'm pretty sure that he had a lot of fears internally, but what he probably did well was, obviously with his quotes and the way he thought about things, was he changed his perception, and because of that he was able to take action and obviously become the success that he was. Now, if you think about some of the fighters that he fought, they were probably much bigger than him and probably had a better chance of beating him, but the reality was Muhammad Ali actually beat them because he beat them in terms of their psyche. He didn't beat them purely just because of his tactics. I truly believe he beat them in the mind, because he kind of eliminated the fear that he had, and he almost kind of transferred that fear onto that other person when he was fighting them. So that's a great example as well, in terms of, how fear can sometimes help us, or it can actually make us sort of slow down our progress. So the next time you are in a situation where you feel like, there's a fear that is, stopping you from taking a certain action, think about the perception of, where that fear is coming from and how you can change that perception in terms of that fear. Hopefully that was a message that will help you and empower you. And I look forward to you in the next episode of the Sidcast. Take care.